Hi, this is Carrie Brownstein.
This is DJ Premier.
This is Darren Aronofsky.
You got the RZA right here.
Rose McGowan.
Radiohead.
Aisha Tyler.
Tribe Called Quest.
Fred Armisen.
Prince Paul.
Javier Munoz. Seth Meyers.
Frankie Cosmos.
Flying Lotus.
Hi, we're Chaim, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. I'm Josh Modell. This week's pairing came together in a fun way when a newish artist referenced the work of a more established band in a song, and the head of a legendary indie label thought they should meet. That sounds complicated, but don't worry, I'll explain. Our guests are Claire Rousay and Kevin Drew. Now, Kevin Drew is best known as one of the founders of Broken Social Scene, the influential Canadian band / collective that's been around for 25 years now. The band has amassed an incredible catalog that broke out with 2002's unstoppable You Forgot It in People, but all of its records reward a deep dive, as does the solo work that Drew has also released over the years. Last year, he put out a moving record about loss, among other things, called Aging, and as you'll hear in this conversation, he hopes to reignite Broken Social Scene for one more run that includes some of the collective's members that have gone on to big careers outside the band, like Leslie Feist and Emily Haines. I would personally love to see it. I imagine the other half of today's conversation, Claire Rousay, would as well. The impetus for this conversation is her song Lover's Spit plays in the background. In case you're not familiar with the aforementioned Broken Social Scene album, it features a song called Lover's Spit. Rousay's song is from her fantastic new album Sentiment, just out on Thrill Jockey Records, on which she leans more into song structure than on past releases, which have been tagged emo ambient. Rousay uses found sounds, hazy atmospherics, and auto-tune to tell sometimes crushingly depressing stories in a way that somehow turn out gorgeous. Check out a little bit of Lover's Spit plays in the background right here.
Lover's spit plays in the background, making me wish I had someone around.
This conversation ended up happening because Thrill Jockey's Bettina Richards reached out to Drew to let him know about the nod on Rousay's song, and the rest is history. As you'll hear, they connected pretty quickly, and they chat about blackout curtains, influential record labels, the death of Kevin's mom, and what Drew dubs Claire's, quote, beautiful, vulnerable, shadowy womb sleeping bag of a record. Enjoy.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for being here on the Talkhouse Podcast. Where are you?
I live in some trees in a little small town outside of Toronto, so that's where I'm at currently. And you are in LA, is that true?
I am in LA, but a little outside of everything, in a not so tree surrounded zone. Yeah, if you want to jump right into it, I know a lot more about you than you know about me, so.
Okay. Well, we should do this. Yeah. I mean,
cool, yeah.
Last night I was trying to sort of just talk to you to say, what do you want to talk about? I'm an open book. I don't know how you are about being an open book. I don't want to make you uncomfortable. So you just have to kind of guide me in where you want to go, and I'll go there with you. It's a safe place, and let's just call in good things and real things. And I think we'll be just fine.
Yeah, no, I'm an open book as well. I guess, like, for context, I know about you, obviously, because of your wildly successful and solo projects and other efforts.
I appreciate you throwing those last two lines in there.
I am actually more familiar with the Spirit F record than anything else you've done. I'm going to be honest.
Well, I already like you more than I did 30 seconds ago.
I see. I'm doing a good job here. Yeah. No, I didn't know, because I grew up like pretty in like a conservative background. I grew up like evangelical Christian in the South. So I'm originally from Winnipeg, but I grew up in Texas. I didn't really know anything about cool music until I was like a little bit older, but I got to catch the Spirit If record because somebody at a open mic night covered you, and I was like, that song is too good to be an original song. And I think this man was trying to pass it off as his own. I Googled the lyrics when I got home, and then I found the record, and then I went to the store and bought it the next week. So that's my intro to you.
I love that. When I got your album recently, I very much dove in, and Tina was asking me, which just to be chatting with her alone, you are on one of my all-time favorite record labels, and I want to discuss that with you. But she did mention that, can you find the song that references a song of yours, a lyric of yours? And of course, it was quite prevalent and also very beautiful. And I love it. And I already have an emotional attachment to you. And I already feel very protective just from hearing that song. So that's why I was kind of trying to call you last night to make sure that I got that out of the way before we spoke. But I very much love that tune. And I love the referencing of Lover Spit. And that's a song that, Claire, it kind of changed my life in a way, because within this realm of so many that is broken social scene, and though I had written that with people in my band, Brendan and I basically sought it out, and actually a drummer named James Payment from Do Make Say Think, he played the original drums with the tambourine off time that sort of locked my piano playing rhythm, that then really became a way that I played piano, but it also became a way in how I heard things and breathed, and BPMs in my heart kind of changed to that time signature. So when anyone recognizes that, it's sort of the most successful thing that I have been a part of, where I've kind of come to the table with it. I'm always quite touched by it. So thank you very much.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is really beautiful to hear. And I mean, I feel like a certain attachment to that song in particular. So it is interesting that it changed you in such a way, because I think it has that effect on people that listen to it, not just the people that are involved in creating it. I mean, for me, Lover Spit is a song that's like been there for me for a very long time in various parts of my life in different stages of growing. So I appreciate you making it. And it is interesting to me that it means so much to you, because I feel like when people make music and write songs, that it can so easily become something that is like void of I don't know, so many of the things that you put into it, I guess. Does that make sense? Like the song can get ruined so easy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to go back to something, but to answer that very quickly, I think they really are your friends, your kids. Their songs are something that you have. Obviously, some nights I couldn't sing it, depending on what was happening in my life. And it was very much written at a time where I was married in a wonderful marriage. And we had then divorced, and it was difficult for me for a few years to not feel like an imposter, as you know, as we all know, as we do as humans and artists and all that. But I think, which is really so beautiful what you said, what made me get past that and even get past my personality, which isn't super cool guy I'm a ham. I'm quite loony and crazy. And sometimes I feel like I disrespect the emotions that I try to conjure up with just my characteristic of trying to make everybody laugh. But you said something just a moment ago, which is what I heard in your music is that you're trying to be there for someone. And I think we both know that that's what music does. You're never alone when you have music. And when you discover that and you decide that you want to create music, that's what I feel is the goal. How does that feel for you?
Yeah. Listening to, but also creating music has been there for me through, everything. But people have asked me about my music more frequently recently, just because I'm in that part of, things where you make music and then it comes out. So there's more chances to talk about yourself. But people ask about what do you want people to take away from these things? Or what do you want people to understand? And I don't want to speak for you, but so much of the music I like, there's a little bit more openness to it and a little bit more of flexibility in terms of like attaching your own feelings to it. And I'm really into the idea of people interpreting what I do however they want. I feel like there are various angles and like ways to attach oneself to the music that you make and the music that you write. I don't know if that's true for you or how you feel about it, or you're trying to say something very specific and you don't want somebody to take something else away, but it feels like that to me.
Good, because you want people to take that into their lives and own it through their own lens and their own heartbeats and how they hear things. I love songs that are stories, but for me, the songs I always took to my bedroom, to my car, to the looking out the window, traveling, were songs that didn't have to alienate me away from my life. It was something that I could grab onto and have an understanding through what I was going through. And I think with Broken Social Scene, that was kind of the element of where we were coming from lyrically. I can't speak for the other songwriters, but I can look at what they wrote when they were with us. And there was very much a unified idea of community within the pain of trying to figure out how to live life.
I have so many questions about being in a band because I mean, I've done it before, but I guess like, what's it like trying to address things like that with other people? Or I guess like come to a consensus on how to express that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think we don't address it. And I think what we try to put our efforts into is allowing everyone to be themselves, though we all have so much information on each other. That's almost like a photo album that kind of restricts people from moving forward. And that's what I feel like being in a band is. You're sort of trapped in this time, but the only place that you're able to kind of be free from without judgment is while you're creating a song. And then once you go into the element, I don't really get lyrical notes that often. And when I do, that is something I listen to because that means someone's actually listening. Mm-hmm. But I think within a band, it is like a family and a marriage, and you need to be counseling and communicating. And I've been able to spend my time with music where someone's not so into it. So I'll bounce over to another member who seems to be into it. And then I manipulate my way through that band at times to try to figure out who's going to support me in the vulnerability of trying to come up with lyrics. But I think the only reason we lasted as long as we did is because in the end, we do support each other, mm-hmm. and we try to support each other individually to get to the task of what they want. And also right now, it's different times. It's not back porch of our days, but we accomplished what we wanted. So now it's mainly about staying with the people, playing for the people. And the fact that this world has just gone full circle and it's kind of where it was when we started. We want to make a record one more time and get out there and bring everyone into a room. And it will be 8 years since we've put music out if we achieve making an album. And it could never be our life, but it was always the thing that made our life work. So it's a bit of a battle, and people just coming and going all the time in terms of Feist's into it, then she's not, and Emily's into it, and then she's not. Those are really huge forces that it's not that it hurts. It's completely understandable because people have their own careers, but there really is a je ne sais quoi beauty when we're all together, but it's chaos on stage due to the element of we've never really been able to wrangle this thing into it being controlled. So you have to let go of control to do it. And that's really difficult. And so it should be for a lot of people because there's a lot of performers out there that need it to be the way that it has to be for them to go to that place because it's such an unsafe place a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying about the chaos on stage. And do you feel comfortable in that?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I get very angry at the people who are making it loud, but I generally know what I'm doing now. And so does the band. And sometimes we look at each other and we think this is crazy, but we just know what we're doing. It's just memory muscle. And we're there for each other on stage as well. There's some craziness but what's happened with social scene is that everybody needs the same thing, and that's just to have their needs be met, even if they're little or large.
Right.
And that's difficult when you have a big band that doesn't have a huge crew by any means, let alone you're getting older and you're all contributing to this metamorphosis of what was something very youthful. And it gets taxing, but never without celebration, which is the reason we're still together. When we play shows and they go well, it really is a very elated feeling, and you do get the energy from the people, and just having so many young people come out now to the shows is rewarding in itself. And the fact we're still doing it, you can't take that for granted. And I know that wanting more, the barriers always change within that, and the finish line's always getting pushed. And that's just the way it goes in life. Half the time you're just trying to remember what you forgot. And the other time you're just trying to remember that you don't need that much.
Do you feel like the finish line was always being pushed? Or I guess like maybe it still is, but
I do have to form a relationship of wondering what my life would have been if this band had not broken up, but just stopped. Mm-hmm. Because it really was something that we achieved what we set out to achieve. And then once you do that, then you do have to achieve more. And only because also as you get older, the comforts and the stresses and the strains of this life of no sleep and constant travel, it's not as easy. So, and if you see your peers and at all, you fall into at any point of any kind of jealousy or pettiness about what is in front of you and happening and still working around you, it's not a great place to stand as a human. But you're also human. It's hard not to stand there.
I appreciate you being so honest about that. I feel like so many people like to pretend that, the jealousy or whatever, that doesn't exist within smaller communities. I've been in plenty of positions where something good happens to me, but something different that is also good happens to somebody else close to me. And I'm like, I would trade my good thing for that other good thing, which is such a unhealthy way to, like you said, just be a human, not to mention like putting that into any kind of creative effort and sharing that with people.
I don't know if I want to say that it's unhealthy, and I'm not trying to correct you or anything
I
in that
appreciate
realm.
that.
But I think it's very actually healthy. I think you need to feel that if you're an empath and you're writing the songs that you're writing. I think you need to feel that to understand how to not feel that way. And there's lessons you can take from the pettiness that you feel at times within your life. And it's tough. It really is. And it's still, I'm 47 years old, Claire, and it still happens for me. And each time it happens, I'm either met with, now you have the tools to move on from that, or I'm very disappointed in myself. And we punish ourselves, and we spend a lot of time anyways, as we do, in shame, because we're maybe not what we're supposed to be. We do this too much. We're addicts. We do that. We feel too much. We have to dumb ourselves down to try to exist in some sort of social situation. But then at the same time, who are we to say that we have to dumb ourselves down? I think what's the most healthy thing you could do is just accept what you're feeling.
This is like all extremely comforting to hear in my current position. So
can we get to you? Because I'd like to say I read an article about you yesterday in The Guardian. And the first thing I thought was, why the fuck did I never buy blackout curtains? What was I thinking? Because the way you described being depressed and just shutting your blackout curtains and staying in bed, I just thought, how did I miss that? I go into the bathtub, but blackout curtains, I don't think I've ever owned a pair. So let's talk about it. You tell me what it's like.
What it's like to live in my cave. It's wonderful. Yes. They protect you from the light, but also the heat and sound. But also, I mean, when you're depressed, you you crave that like
the womb.
And like, but also just like the cyclical, like, you're sad, so you do something that makes you feel better momentarily, but like scientifically is proven to make you kind of like stay in that depressive cycle. So I'm like, well, blackout curtains and fucking a bottle of wine, it's like I can just like exist in this space that doesn't feel real. I'm like floating in time, kind of.
I love it.
Yeah, it's like there's no consequence, but there definitely is.
Not in the moment though, so good for you for solving that one.
Oh yeah, my vices all in one small room in on the east side of Los Angeles. It's really beautiful.
Let's go deeper into the blackout curtains, if you don't mind.
No, okay? Not at all. Yeah,
because obviously having depression in your life means you're alive and you're someone that feels things. I was reading this article and you were being very open about it, which is great because the conversations, as we know, are getting more and more alive in the realm of emotions and feelings and mental health and mental wellness, to the point of where you could argue it's getting confusing or it's getting overused. But when it comes down to the individual just speaking about it, then it's real and it's truthful and it's there for people to take how they want. But for you, in doing this record and doing this music, I found a lot of shadows in it. And I did write a quote. I don't know if he ever sent it to you. It was kind of like, sounds like the Ouija board of that evening in the middle of the night. Yeah. Now tell me about it. Tell me about what it is that you're feeling when you're feeling the blackout curtains, the darkness, that feeling of, let's say, possible suicide to a certain degree.
I mean, the way I approach life is usually in extremes. So I'm like, if I'm very into something, I go 110% with it. So, regardless I don't know, like if it's music and I'm feeling something with like a very specific sound, I'll like go in and only like use those tools and make songs that sound a certain way and then just like work in that until I'm over with it. But then the blackout curtains are the same. I always go 110% into the blackout curtains, but I'm usually feeling like I just want to I and it sounds so extreme, but the 110% I guess is the most extreme you can go, regardless of what's actually causing that or if there's like a trigger or a root cause for the depression. But I'm like, what if I just stopped doing everything I'm doing? What if I just was done with trying to do the music thing, trying to do the relationship thing, trying to do the living in this city thing, or just, wanting to change everything at once with like the delusion that that would make things better. So usually it's like a combination of leaning into the bad feeling and then also like a longing for whatever the opposite of what my current circumstances are.
Do you find your music to be kind of like the blackout curtains for you?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I lean into self destruction more than the average individual, I think. And sometimes that's in a more private setting, and sometimes it's more public. Not necessarily like I've had any kind of major meltdown. Also, like I'm not like any kind of public figure that if I did have a public meltdown, it would change really anything in my life, which I'm fortunate for. But yeah, I think the music is kind of like the blackout curtains in a way. I definitely think all the feelings from that go into the music. And like I was saying earlier, I'm very open to people interpreting what I do, how they want to interpret it. So there's an openness to it, even though it's kind of like a document or like a reflection of a private moment.
And you feel safe putting that out there, or is that depending on how you're received or the day, where you're at on the tour, and maybe there's 30 people and then there's 200 and then there's 20, and then is there things that you need from the outside world to, which we all do, like I'm not trying to put you on blast here, but is there things right now as you're going back out there with this beautiful, vulnerable, spooky, shadowy womb sleeping bag of a record, is there, where there's woundedness in there, are you surrounded with some people that understand what you're doing and understand your highs and lows that are what you're going to live no matter what? Or are you alone out there? No, you got some good ones?
I have some good ones. It's funny because I do typically travel alone, and I have for probably 5 or 6, basically since I wasn't, when I started doing things by myself, not in a band or anything. I mean, after whatever the tiniest period that was possible to not play shows with COVID and people locking things down. Basically, the second I was able to play shows, I started doing it again. But I was doing it alone. So this time around, I have a few people playing with me, and some people traveling with me, which is nice. I think one of the most beautiful parts about making music with other people is the things that happen outside of the stage or the recording process. Like the human connection that you have. Like I'm never going to make music with people that I can't also go to dinner with,
Oh, I know. I'm in broken social scene. Those dinner bills are some of the best meals and times and hangs I've had is with my band throughout the world, and so privileged and lucky to have it happen. Now, I want to switch gears on you and talk about Thrill Jockey, because Thrill Jockey is one of, I think, the greatest record labels out there. And for me, it was an extremely influential label. And for a lot of us as well, coming out of the gates, and the fact that there was just this community of music in the 90s that we all flocked to, when you could read who the musicians were, who were playing what instruments, and then go and find. It was through Thrill Jockey that I found Drag City, that I found 4AD, that I found Cranky. Thrill Jockey was the church that led me to all the bungalows around it. And you are on that label. Tell me about that.
It feels amazing because I've looked up to the label for so long, and so many of the people on the label, even like going back into the 90s and like, because that, I mean, at that point I was a child, so I wasn't experiencing it as a somebody in the scene. So like going back and reading about everything that was happening in the 90s through like, I mean, like I'm a freak on the internet. I'm not really good with technology, but I like digging things up. So I'll, there's this book recently that came out that Brian, who started Cranky, did called You're With Stupid. And there's a lot of Thrill Jockey stuff in there. But then going from that and then finding more information on like people who have published stuff and documented other things that were published in the 90s, reading about all the artists on the label. It's like they're like rock stars to me. So when Bettina hit me up to put out a record, it was like a cold call type situation. It was just an email saying that she was into what I was doing. And if I ever wanted to make a record or put out a record, she would be there for it. And however many records I wanted to do, or if I wanted to do more than one thing, she'd be down for it. I was kind of taken aback because I was like, oh, this label with all this history and all these people that changed music for me and for a lot of people. These people are fucking with me right now. Like I'm part of the equation now, which is really beautiful. But I don't know. It's funny that you found everybody through Thrill Jockey because I also found so much music like as a starting place, like going through that label and then like you were saying, finding like Drag City and Cranky and all that. And that's such a world that I'm like, I don't know, like 90s independent label type shit is like a place I'm stuck and I wasn't really part of it. And I'm like looking back on it, like kind of on the outside, but now I'm inside. If that makes any sense.
It makes sense because it feels like it's happening again. And I love that I want to say thank you. Bettina's never emailed me before. And I think if we did have an email exchange, it might have been around, we did this 7-inch with Sea and Cake for a tour we were doing. But to get her to, I called 3 people after I got the emails. Never guess who just emailed me. And because that's royalty to us, to a lot of us. And I love to sing people's praises because I don't hold back when it comes to that. And I don't care if it bothers the person. I'm not uncomfortable about it, but I want people to know, especially as life carries on and the judgment factor and the jukebox is constantly changing. And I think that you don't become forgotten, but I once had someone lovely tell me, don't worry about legacy. So you do sort of let go of what you've done to move forward and move on with your life to keep creating the best things you're going to create. And I think that there's a turning right now, like a little bit of a full circle to the 90s, which we were speaking about on the weekend, where there's just this form of music being created. And a lot of it's coming from this sort of experimental indie aspect because the majors and the corporations and the pop music is what's dominating right now more than ever. And that's really where there's a good time for independent to come back. So I'm excited, and I think it's fantastic that you're on one of the labels that was spearheading that.
At this point, there's kind of like a little buzz in the indie underground experimental world where there's like people I know in like just like rock bands who've done some touring, but not like huge or anything. Like, people are getting scooped up or getting offers or entertaining offers from majors. And I'm like, what is that even? Like that? I thought that didn't exist anymore. And, I'm really not part of that world and I'm pretty new to everything like industry related in general, but just reading about it happening in Chicago specifically in the 90s and then kind of seeing it happen in real time now and seeing so many of the people I keep referencing what we say earlier, but like the disappointment and jealousy and things like that from the outside. And I'm like, well, I'm not really interested in that, but it is interesting just to kind of watch happen. Because I do also think that there's so much interesting music being made right now.
What I witness in the mainstream, which is sort of the people who are running the show are sort of, they're turning their backs on artists to a certain degree because we know that youth is where the dream begins. But so much of what they focus on is the moment and what's hot in the moment. And they still don't seem to understand that the moment doesn't last forever. It's to the truth and the authenticity that lasts forever. But you then find yourself in a conversation about, well, you'll be celebrated at some time in your life. And all that's just bullshit to me. I think you're here to affect people to the strongest ability that you can. Whether you want to and do the work for that is up to you. But I do believe that there's great music out there that still needs to be found, heard, listened to, discovered. And there is an identity crisis that we're having everywhere we turn. And that is something that music can help with. Yet it's been so diminished through the art of social media and streaming and all these things that we lose ourselves and we do lose our identities. And we do find that when art is not helping us through humanity in our social circles of community, then we do start turning on each other. And I do believe that the resurgence is coming. And I think that you are a part of that.
It's funny how music can be the thing that, is the start of all these amazing feelings, but also can be, I guess, like it's this cycle of, you get really into it because it's music, and then you get so focused on these other things, or the music gets dominated by these things that aren't necessarily have anything to do with the music. And then you get focused on those things, and then that's kind of where all the negativity creeps in.
What's the negativity? Not saying of course I know what the negativity. I know that darkness sits in the corner waiting for you to show any signs of insecurity, to show up and start partying with you. But what's the negativity that you keep speaking of in this interview?
I guess there's multiple forms of it. I think. I mean, just the expectation to do well, or like do something to meet somebody else's expectations, even if they maybe aren't your own. Also, like the goalpost is always moving. So your own expectations, you're like, well, if I do this one thing, then my life will change in this way, and then I'll get to do this other thing. It's like, was this what you were thinking of when you were making the music? Because it doesn't seem like it, because the music's pretty good. I mean, these are all those things I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, oh, if I get sell this many records, then I won't be in debt to somebody else. And fortunately, that worry has gone away, and that's no longer an issue right now, which is good. But then I'm like, hopefully, once I go on tour, we do a run of shows at these venues with these capacities, and hopefully that does well. And then if that does go well, then maybe there will be even more interest, and then maybe more people will come the next time. We'll get to do a larger capacity. It's like still play the same music pretty much, but it's like I don't understand why I'm like, oh yeah, like everything has to constantly be growing. So I guess this darkness, this negativity is maybe like the growth potential for a musician or artist or whatever.
That sounds very healthy to me. Maybe you just, and this is unsolicited advice as well to the listeners, and I'm trying to tell you how to think, but a lot of the times we create stories for ourselves and conversations for ourselves that we forget that just sounds like you want to do well with your career, which I would hope that you do. And it's smart to think that way. It's smart but at the same time that I've heard this just recently, expectations go away when you just be yourself and accept who you are. It's just also, that's a full-time job sometimes to be yourself and accept who you are. So it's always going to be that conundrum. But what you're speaking of to me is that's very healthy. Look, a lot of the successful people I know lost sleep worrying about capacity and numbers, and it worked for them. It's amazing how we get taught not to strive for not necessarily more, but for what you feel you can achieve. I recently did this solo tour, and I'm in the middle of doing this solo tour, and I've been around for quite some time now. And a lot of the times I show up, it's basically 60 to 150 people. Now, obviously, if I'm at a 50 cap room, it's sold out. But when you travel to a 400 capacity and 87 people show up, you've got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And what was really becoming apparent to me on some of these shows was this was the show. The show was not for 400 people. The show was for 100 people or less. And that's what I was doing. It was very, very intimate. My mother had passed away in July. I'm going out on the road and I'm honoring her, and I'm honoring my friends because I have a bunch now that have died. And I'm honoring those people in the room to bring forth their loss in this little circle that we have. And it wouldn't have occurred to me that that was my show through ego, because obviously ego was telling me, where the fuck is everybody? I put in my time. I've done this. I've done that. Why are my friends playing Massey Hall? And I'm in a fucking basement in Ottawa. But Ottawa's a beautiful show. And I had to adjust what my personal expectations were for what I was doing in on this tour. It wasn't social scene. It wasn't as if suddenly that all crumbled and fell apart, but it's always there to fall apart and crumble. And it's always there to actually take off and gather more. But once I kind of accepted what I was doing, I really enjoyed myself. And I don't know why I went on this huge tangent. Maybe I wanted to hear myself talk, which I'm guilty of.
No.
Claire, what I'm trying to say is that the things that you just spoke about, those are healthy things. And I would just stress to you that maybe a lot of the times we get told not to strive for more because it's something bad or expectations are bad. But if you manage them like you manage brushing your teeth, it's just the same thing. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, that is a very welcome tangent, but not really a tangent. You it was pretty on the nose. These are all things I'm thinking about, but that's very good to hear. You need to check yourself depending on, where you are. And I guess like I also feel like so much guilt feeling like I deserve anything, which is my own issue. But I think you're taught also to like ask for as little as possible or expect very little. And like if something really huge happens overnight, like that's how it works. Which is not the case. And I also am really proud of a lot of the work. I haven't been at it nearly as long as other people, but I feel like I got in the van when I was like 15 to like go on a DIY tour, and it like never stopped. So I'm like, okay. And so, when things go well, it's like, well, maybe it was like the 15 years of hard work, but it also could just be luck or the Spotify magic or something like that. But I'm like a really nosy person, so tell me if this is too much, but I'm really interested in schedules and people's like day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
Especially people that and I'm not going to shy away, like you were saying earlier, from telling people that I, admire what they do. And like, you're very much a person that I admire what you do and the things that you've done. So do you have a daily routine, any rituals that you do? Do you do the same thing most days? I'm just curious.
If you were to talk to me last weekend, that's why I was excited to do this week, because I did go down and it happens. But my blackout curtains is the bathtub, and anyone could tell you that. I spent a lot of time in the bath, my place where I try to go and find that peace. I'm very much an addict from hummus to, I quit smoking, I quit drinking, I drank, I quit, I drank, and drank. And I realized that I just love. And I love the smiles and the high fives. And obviously balancing that out as you get older is a fine art. But my day-to-day ritual is usually talking with people, because I really do believe you've got to have some good people to talk to every day to balance your reflection. And then I try to take baths, and I just try to do something creative for about 2 hours a day, whether it's writing, painting, poetry, writing music, or sculpturing out things, taking photos, going for walks, and planning the things that you want to do differently. There's a lot of business because I've come back into it to protect the band. I think we have a really good team right now. Mm-hmm. And I took some time off, about 6 years, to just let them go and do everything. But now I've realized, no, I'm good. I'm strong. And to the element of what you were saying before, I want to see us shine. And I know that sometimes that's like going into the playground and saying, no, the slide is mine for the next 10 minutes. And I'm not usually that person. And I was never a competitive person. And I held the door for a lot of people and things in my life over this time. But right now, I feel a sense of pride towards this band being around as long as it has. And I feel a sense of pride in terms of the life that I've lived that could be judged by the outside, and has been for the last 25 years that I've been around. So once my mother died, Claire, I started to say, okay, it's not that I don't give a fuck, because I truly believe in responsibility, but there's something now with her on the other side that has given me a power where I'm not really into the bullshit, and I'm not into the falsehood of preconceived Velcro authenticity. And I see what's being celebrated in this world, and I see what's happening to those who are hurting in this world. And it's going to take people to bring us back. And that's where I'm at. So my rituals right now are trying not to feel the pain of everyone, and certainly never feeling nothing, to quote Dinosaur Jr. It's always, you feel the pain of everyone and then you feel too much.
Yeah.
So balance is something that I don't skate, pretty uncoordinated when it comes to skates, but I'm sharpening up the skates to figure out how to do that Joni Mitchell river and be responsible to the idea of there's health, there's friendship, and there's family, and everything else you have to kind of make work within those three things. And it's difficult. It really is.
No, that's really beautiful. I know you've mentioned your mother a few times, and I'm sorry that, I've lost people in my life as well, but nothing that close to home. So I'm really sorry for your loss, but also
I appreciate that.
Seems like you're like, I don't know.
We were good. We were
Yeah.
good. My mom and I, we were good. And my family's been my brother and my dad, everyone's doing their own thing now and their own way of grieving. And we all understand that. And also they've been really sweet and supportive to let me go publicly out there honoring my mom as well. Obviously, she has a son who's my brother Cameron, and obviously she was married for 56 years to my father. So, but no, we were good. And I just try to tell people, get straight with your parents, get good with your folks. Obviously, if you have the opportunity to, there's pain. Everyone is a victim of a victim. There's a shit ton of history and trauma and all that runs through families. But if you can just get to a place with them, the therapy bills are way cheaper, and the guilt that we all are born with, whether we're privileged or not, and obviously some way more than others. And we're not going to go down the road of that. But I do need to take a second to honor those who have hundreds of years of fucking trauma. But it's just the idea of everybody just wants to be loved, Claire. They just want to feel love. And when you see all this hatred out there and all this fucking disgustingness, people just not getting love.
Yeah.
And
It's
pretty fucking simple.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's simple, but it's not a simple matter at all to fix this planet that we live on with everybody so angry.
Not one person's job either, I assume.
No. Except Jared Leto.
Yeah, exactly.
What's his band's name again? I just remember watching a trailer to one of his films. He's like, don't you want to save the world? And it's like, dude, I don't think it's you, but I fucking really, really admire your enthusiasm. Go make that record.
30 Seconds to Mars, baby.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just bring that up because I saw him jump. Somebody showed me a clip, I think, of him jumping.
Oh, yeah.
The hell is that?
Yeah, like suspended.
Yeah.
Is that your next
That's what I'm striving for. And
well,
it's
that's
healthy.
what I'm saying. Yeah. You did your 50 cap, and now you're going for your 50,000 cap.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Exactly. You know what? It's all the same feeling. Isn't that crazy? I've done that. I've done both numbers, and it's the same feeling.
That
it's
is
quite
insane.
Bizarre. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Quite bizarre.
Well, do you want to end it there, I guess?
If you feel comfortable, I mean, I feel like we're now going to move on with our lives, and I've got your number and you've got my number, and it's the start. This is the start of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah. Thanks for being down to do this. Hopefully it was rewarding for you in some way. And
it was rewarding before I got on the call. And that was kind of what I was trying to express to you. I appreciate artists and I appreciate honesty. And that's what you have in your back pocket. And I understand when I read all about you, I thought, yeah, I have an understanding of how you go through life with the highs and the lows. There's no middle sometimes for us. And that's the hardest part about doing it. But as long as you remember that, and it's took me such a long time to remember that the suicide feeling that comes around when it does is because you are supposed to kill that part of yourself that's driving you to the point of feeling that way. It's such a bizarre thing to not think of it that way. All right, this has been lovely. Awesome. I'm actually going to call you right back afterwards. I want to ask you a question, but I'll do it off the. I want to ask you about a show that maybe you can come to, but we'll do that.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, I'll talk to you in a
All right.
sec.
Yeah, I'll talk to you in a sec. Let's end this.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Talkhouse Podcast, and thanks to Claire Rousay and Kevin Drew for chatting. If you liked what you heard, please follow Talkhouse on your favorite podcasting platform and check out all the goodness at talkhouse.com. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the Talkhouse theme is composed and performed by The Range. See you next time.